in search of soil.
Well, let's look at what you were talking about previously. Different forms of carbon. So people, listening to this, they think of, okay, carbon in the soil. You have a few things. You have a living root. You have the exudates coming out of that root. You
Mhm.
have the microbes in the soil that have carbon in their bodies, and then you have previous plant material that's left in the soil. So all these different forms of carbon. When you talk about that, how do you explain this to people, and how do you value these in the system?
Yes. So I try to keep simple because it's a complex matter, and you have to start separating what we call as organic matter. One is fresh organic matter, and one is soil organic matter. Well, you say the fresh is in the soil. Yes, but it's a fresh organic matter are the roots, all the residues. So more plant-based related. Manure, fresh organic, you put it from fresh that is quickly decomposed. Now that fresh organic matter has different pools. And these pools are just like, what would you think? I mean, I don't know about if I can think of a good example, but if you were to eat something and you know it wouldn't be bad for you, most of us probably would choose dessert to eat first, right? Because so there is the first thing that the microbe eat are sugar. So they eat the sugars, the carbohydrates, and that's very labile, really quick to decompose. They eat it, expel. Then they go on the chewy stuff, the fiber, like we, like more of it, and that's the cellulose and hemicellulose, the component of, people are more familiar with those concepts in the trees and the bark, and so then lignin, much harder and chewy, and that's still the roots. And so a leaf, how long does it take for a leaf in the fall to decompose? I mean, you look at it, it's gone just about, a few months, because it's how much lignin does it have? Very little compared. It's much more soft and versus, a piece of wood that has a significant amount of, lignin. And the fresh organic matter, so it's the first thing. And the things that those microbes, they become the organic carbon, and the organic carbon has three different pools. We call it pools again as a qualitative description. A labile pool, very quick turnaround, less than 6 months to a year. It depends really on the type of where the soils and climate and everything, but very short dynamics. Then you have the intermediate or slow pool. That's what we wish to have the most, the humic form. Things that stays and becomes that colloidal material, black looking stuff, the good soil organic carbon. Biochar, for example, stays. It's a lot of all the other stuff is gone. You maintain it in the soil. Very good amendment. But biochar is almost also towards, more resistant. Then you got a resistant or passive, as you want to call. Those are the ones that we use for carbon dating. You can go back to the Romans' time and where that stone, how old is, because there's carbon that will last for so long. But normally those are in the century-old type of dynamics to decompose that. And each of them, every time it decomposes, releases CO2. It goes into the atmosphere. So the first component, 60% of the first pool immediately when decomposed, CO2. Organic matter from this labile, some of it is accumulated and goes into the slow pool. That one gets decomposed much slower over a longer period of time, goes to CO2, and each of them. So it's basically this, if you imagine almost this six kind of circle, three above fresh organic matter, labile, the carbohydrates, hemicellulose, cellulose, lignin, labile pool, intermediate pool, humus, slow, and resistant.
Yeah, for somebody, if we want that intermediate pool, how do you get that into the soil? How do you build that up? If you wanted to turn that number up in your soil, what are ways somebody would do that?
You add carbon, you add residues, you add roots. It cannot be produced by itself. It has to come from outside. It has to come from living organism. It comes from fresh. Oh, those three pools above are connected to the one below. Those are the ones that funnel into that. So how do you accumulate that? By putting mulch, by putting manure, by putting, so organic matter per se, like I said, is 60% carbon. So but that gets burned quickly because it's the fresh organic matter. So a big chunk of that is lost. But one thing is, when you do a soil sampling and you get a large number in a mineral soils, you have got a piece of fresh organic matter somehow. Or something is not, it cannot be a 12, 13% organic matter converted into 6 or 7% organic carbon in a very short time, knowing what your equilibrium is and where you are in the rotation, if you are in a grazing system or so there is that it doesn't mean that, I didn't see anything or there was a business step. It's very, fine decomposition, but that will eventually be lost. That's what I'm saying. It looks there, but it's going to be lost. The one that stays is the organic carbon. And if you look at the literature and the sampling over time for all this, when you analyze for organic carbon, it changes very little. It could change a lot if you add, basically add more carbon in the form of fresh organic matter, roots. And
hi, everybody. Thanks for watching. Subscribe here to get the latest from the show. Also, be sure to check out some of the great clips and watch the full interviews right here on In Search of Soil.